Hello, my name is Ron May, and I'm chaplain at Hoosier Village Retirement Community. It's a privilege for me to be able to share for a few moments on my recollections of Jim Powers. Jim and I and Marilyn came to Hoosier Village at about the same time in the early spring of 2015. And initially, my connection to Jim was in knowing about him being a World War II veteran. Even though I was serving as chaplain here, I also had an interest in preserving the stories of World War II veterans, and it was in that connection that I first began to talk to and ask to interview Jim Powers concerning his World War II service. And that service was as a radio operator on a B-24 Liberator in the Italian theater of war in the last couple of years of World War II. And as I interviewed Jim and captured his story and published it in a second volume of my book series, Jim began to accompany me on visits, speaking engagements where I was talking about my book and selling my book. He was very gracious in coming along, signing copies, and interacting with the people. And one of the things I learned real early on in watching Jim Powers was that while he was there to share about his World War II service, he was there to share about his life and particularly his mentor, John Wooden. And that became very clear to me throughout the times. I'll bet Jim was probably with me on a dozen different public speaking engagements. But it became especially clear to me about 2 years ago in November of 2018. Might have been one of the last speaking engagements. And I was invited to speak at the Martinsville Public Library, and Jim graciously came along with me to be a part of it. And he asked during the drive down there if we would have enough time to make a stop at the old Martinsville Public High School. And I said, yeah, I thought we would have time to do that. So we stopped over at the high school and found a janitor to let us in. And it was then that I realized that Jim wanted to visit that high school because that was the high school of his mentor, John Wooden. John had played high school basketball there in Martinsville, and Jim Powers had never been to that school or to that basketball court. And so here he was at the time, 93 years old, maybe 94, coming to see and pay tribute to the place where his life mentor, John Wooden, once played basketball and learned the game that he would go on to teach in a legendary way as one of the best coaches ever. And it was there as Jim was standing next to the big photograph there of John Wooden and then standing next to the basketball court that it struck me that this was really a metaphor of Jim's life. He was standing there at 93, going on 94. He was paying tribute to and remembering a beloved coach that had died 9 years earlier, I think in 2010, and he was going to be speaking about his World War II service in just an hour later. And all of life kind of converged on that scene as Jim was in front of a court giving tribute to a coach and really depicting a life. I mean, the basketball court is a metaphor for life itself. In fact, John Wooden is legendary for talking about, faith and family and friends and about being a good person, not just a good basketball player. And that rubbed off on Jim Powers in a powerful way, not just as a player, but as many of you know, as a coach and athletic director himself. And it all kind of came full circle, I think, for me and maybe for Jim that day as he paid tribute to a coach that had meant so much to him, both Jim and John Wooden, who had served in World War II, Coach Wooden in the Navy and Jim in the Army Air Forces, and both of whom devoted their lives to not just teaching a sport that they loved, but teaching young men that they loved to be good people, good citizens, good players, and later husbands and fathers and workers. And I think that's a tribute, not just to John Wooden, but a tribute to Jim Powers, that encapsulated his life. That faith, that family, those friends, all of which comes under the banner of God's blessings, and it is appropriate for us to now commend the blessing that God gave to us in Jim Powers back to God and ask for his care upon Jim and certainly upon Maryland and upon their wonderful family. So I'll leave you with this verse that I think kind of touches on Jim's life as well as Coach Wooden's, some from 2 Timothy chapter 4, where the Apostle Paul says, "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. There is in store for me now the crown of righteousness, which the Lord will award to me." And we rejoice in knowing that Jim Powers has crossed the finish line of a long life well lived under the banner of a gracious God who has loved him dearly and will continue to care for him and his family. God bless you all.